Good evening. Welcome tonight to our midweek time of prayer and Bible study. Glad that you are with us, and we are privileged once again to be able to spend time sharing our concerns, spending time in the Word. Did everybody get the prayer sheet and the outline for tonight? Anybody not get one of those? That we have more up here on the table, and this has an extra sheet to it. So even if you don't normally take notes, you may want to at least be near someone where you can see some material that I'll be referring to once we get to the message time. As you're taking a look at that and thinking about some other prayer concerns, updates on some folks who are here. Also, you'll see up here on the table is the proposed directory for the 2020-2021 church year. So we have all the committee reports, we have the budget proposal, we have the proposed calendar, which of course is unlike any other past calendars. If you thought the other ones didn't have much, this really doesn't have much on it. But not only is this the material that we will be discussing next week. So with that, I do want to remind you, next week is our yearly business meeting. So next Wednesday night, we will be having our yearly business meeting, and we will vote on the items that are in here. So again, pick one of these up, take a look at it this week, and then if you have any questions between now and next Wednesday, don't hesitate to ask me or the Finance Committee, Nominating Committee, Committee on Committees, these folks who help put this together. Feel free to do so, or just come prepared next week to ask questions and discuss. The other thing, though, that is really important, and it's been made even more important over the last 6 months, if your address and phone number is not correct in here, then you're not going to get anything from the church. Now, if that's the way you'd like it, then you can leave it, all right? You can leave it just the way it is, and we won't bother you. Well, we probably won't. Maybe we will. I don't know. But our correspondence, phone calls, the phone tree, so sending out those messages, especially early on about plans related to the church and shutting down all those things that happened back in March. If this is not correct, then you won't get the phone calls. So please, if you could please check this and make sure that your stuff is right. If it is not, then you need to contact the church office. You can email Missy, you can call Missy at the church office, and we can get that information corrected. And again, however you'd like that displayed, primary phone, cell phone, if you just want one home phone, if you want your email addresses in there so that others can contact you, through various means. So, again, just take note of that. So if you didn't get one of these when you came in, we're not going to refer to it tonight, but you can pick one up as you leave tonight. But again, that'll be next Wednesday night. All right, so some prayer concerns to mention tonight. One, if you could add Ike Holton. Ike will be having knee replacement surgery on Monday. Also, if we could add Bill Clark. He is nothing specified other than having health issues. Bill Clark. All right, a couple other folks to mention. You'll see prayer group number 1, if we could continue to pray for Kay Fitzgerald with infection in her foot. And she was here Sunday, but that's still causing her quite a bit of trouble. So if we could pray for Kay. Also, you'll note members in the hospital. Let's continue to pray for Kathy Devlin. She'd come home for a while, but then went back due to complications. So let's pray for Bud and Kathy. And then also by way of praise, prayer group number 3, the last name, Nita Willenborg. So the Willenborgs had an opportunity to visit via social distance with their mother today. And so that was good. That was the first time, right? Since in 4 or 5 months, all right? So the first time in months. And so certainly a praise. Of course, you had to do it outside, I think. Was that right? And you had to be distant, but still had an opportunity to see her. So that is certainly a praise. probably for both parties involved. And so glad to hear that. And her, she probably needed contact from loved ones, so that is good news. Other prayer concerns you'd share tonight? All right, so praise. Janice Eckloff, we prayed for her with hip replacement surgery, and the surgery went well. Of course, there's still quite a few days of rehab and recovery left for her, and so we'll pray for that, but praise that all went well. Good. Could you say the name again? I'm sorry. Miss Hazel. Oh, okay. All right. Be in prayer for Hazel Bostic. Though she is doing well, she certainly enjoys phone calls, so... All right. So, yeah. All right. So let's, if we continue to pray for Jimmy's father, Marvin Timms, who's in rehab and will be there for several more weeks. And so, at this point, is in a quarantine section. There are no visits, though they've been able to video chat to be able to see him. Perhaps would be moved to an area where they could communicate via a window, through a window. Okay. So maybe that will provide some personal contact. Let's continue to pray for Marvin Timms. All right, if we could be in prayer for Joe Glass, and in particular the church where he is serving seems to have been some cases of COVID, maybe even a bit of an outbreak, and so let's pray for Edna Cade, dehydrated, dealing with an infection. All right, prayer group number 1, the first name. Let's pray for Lolita Andrews. Has been having some swelling below the knee in her leg, and so we'll be going to the doctor to see what may be causing that, but causing her some concern about what may be lying underneath. Okay? All right. Okay, so a couple of praises there. Her name was Rosemarie. Is that correct? Prayed for her last week, was going in for surgery, though it took a little longer. She did come through it, all went well, and so let's pray for that ongoing recovery from that. And then also Quinn Academy, so homeschool starting up again, and but all has gone well. So certainly grateful for that. I'm sure along with that, I know there are parents who'd appreciate prayers as it pertains, to school and those some of the issues they've had this week related to the starting back the public school. So we certainly want to be in prayer for those parents and students and teachers. I know that also the private schools have gone back as well. So just all of this starting back again, and still with this sense of uncertainty about what the days to come look like. So certainly want to be in prayer for all these folks. Okay, all right, so good news about Scott Johnson. He has found a teaching position, and so that'll be a sustainable work for him and for his family, so that is good news. Also, he'll have an opportunity to preach this Sunday, and we'll pray for Scott as he has an opportunity to minister. Okay? All right, let's be in prayer for Scott's mom, Penny Wilson, though there's not been an official diagnosis yet, having significant trouble with lungs, concerned maybe a lung infection. And though they're trying to rule things out at this point, let's pray for Penny Wilson. All right, let's take some time and pray. And so you pray through these concerns and other concerns that you may have. And I will close our prayer time in a few minutes. Father God, we're grateful for the gathering of your people tonight. We are again encouraged by being with brothers and sisters in Christ, and being able to give voice to the burdens we bring in here, whether they are our own or those that we carry on behalf of others. We are encouraged not only to be with like-minded believers and to be able to share these things with one another, knowing that we receive love and support and encouragement from one another. We are even more so encouraged because we know we can trust all of these concerns to you. You've granted us access to your presence in prayer. We can come boldly before your throne, and your word calls it the throne of grace. And we know, Father, that you can and do intervene in lives. You provide for physical needs. You provide for the circumstances of life. You grant healing. You grant then patience and perseverance. You grant peace in the midst of anxiety and trust in fearful times. We thank you, God, that you do provide these things. And so, Lord, it is in all of that confidence and certainty that we again trust all of these concerns to You, asking for Your will to be done, and asking that we would be sensitive, mindful to the ways we might be used of You in these lives, the way we might come alongside either these who are on this list or others You just may cause our lives to intersect with. And may we be prepared to be a love and to be encouraging and to be a support for brothers and sisters in Christ. I pray we would also be sensitive to the ways in which You provide us opportunities to be faithful witnesses for the gospel. And so, God, we ask You continue to lead and guide us as Your church, that we would be submissive to You and to Your word, and that we would seek Your glory. And God, continue to organize us, arrange us, knit us together in such a way that we would be most effective at accomplishing the purposes that You have for us. And we ask that You would also grant us wisdom and insight as we seek to be discerning people. Help us to not only understand Your word, but to understand those who are using Your word but doing so improperly. Not only that we might guard ourselves, but that we could help be a guard for others. And so, Father, we pray again that You would lead us tonight, and may I be faithful to the task, rightly handling Your word, and may it be used by Your Spirit to continue to form and fashion us into Christ-likeness. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, if you want to take your Bibles, turn with me to Acts chapter 20. Acts chapter 20. Tonight we're just going to dive right in. I've got a lot of material I would like to get to. So tonight we move beyond what has been kind of the basic words of admonition, encouragement. For the last few weeks, as I've been trying to wrap up this series on discernment, we've been looking at two texts, Matthew chapter 10, Acts chapter 20, and really what stands is, I think, essential warning to the church. We find ourselves in very dangerous times, and it has nothing to do with novel viruses. Quite frankly, I would argue it is far more dangerous because it has far more eternal ramifications. And that God's people need to be aware of the threats that are surrounding us. And as I've mentioned all along, we have both external threats, we have the world, and Jesus addresses that. He warns us in Matthew chapter 10, we're going out as sheep among wolves. And so we looked at the principle, the world hates Christ and those who truly follow Him. We also then looked at His follow-up encouragement to us, that we are to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. And so as we relate to the world that is around us, we recognize it is a dangerous place. What do wolves do to sheep? They eat sheep. They don't make friends with sheep. If they're making friends with a sheep, it's because they're luring a sheep in so they can eat the sheep. That's how wolves work. That's how the world works. When the church finds herself trying to be friendly with the world, that will never be successful. Now, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't be loving and kind. However, we should not be bending over backwards trying to figure out ways for the world to like us better. It's a sheep marinating itself in barbecue sauce. All right, I mean that's all that it's doing, and so we got to be careful about that. So what do? Well, we are most faithful to Christ when we serve Him with wisdom and holiness. We need to be smart. We need to be cautious. At the same time, we need to be faithful, obedient. We need to have a consistent testimony. And then we moved on to the internal threat. It isn't just there are wolves out there. Jesus warns, and then Paul does here in Acts chapter 20, that there are wolves in the sheep's pen, dressed up like sheep. And I argued last week and would say this again, this is in fact the far more dangerous problem. At least if I'm out among wolves, I know to expect. But when a wolf dresses up like a sheep, that guy can do a lot of danger. That girl can do a lot of danger, all right? They can be a serious threat then to the sheep. And so we made the point last week, those who claim Christ are not necessarily faithful to His gospel. There are those who are Again, wolves in sheep's clothing. All right, let's go on to the last one. And this will be point number 4. And we'll deal with this fairly expeditiously and then jump into the kind of the final little bits you have there on your outline. I think a fourth principle, a fourth warning to consider as we think about this issue, we must be vigilant in our defense of Christ's gospel and His church. So again, go back to verse 29, Acts chapter 20, verse 29. Paul's giving this final word to the elders at Ephesus. He's warning them, not only is he justifying his own ministry and kind of giving them motivation for theirs, but then he says this, "For I know this, that after my departure savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. Also from among yourselves men will rise up, speaking perverse things, to draw away the disciples after themselves. Therefore, watch and remember that for 3 years I did not cease to warn everyone night and day with tears. So now, brethren, I commend you to God and to the word of His grace, which is able to build you up and give you an inheritance among all those who are sanctified." So I think it's interesting, as Paul continues this kind of word of warning, he gives them this word that sounds really similar to Jesus, doesn't it? Don't you remember Jesus giving this instruction to His own disciples that they need to watch? He tells them to watch and pray, right? This language, whenever it shows up in the Bible, and it shows up a number of times, the language of watching is always language related to threat. It always means that there is something looming. There is the potential for attack. What you are watching for would be for the enemy that would be coming. So it is a word that speaks to always being on guard, to being vigilant, to having your eyes open, to being aware of the dangers that are out there. And I would just argue it's just a final commendation, at least to me, that we are well within not only our rights, but I would say our duty to evaluate people who are speaking the Word of God in the name of God to the people of God. We are well within our rights to evaluate everything that's being said, to evaluate the motivation for what's being said, to evaluate even the method that's being used in saying it. We are well within our rights to do so, because that is the only way to discern, is this a sheep, or do I detect a wolf's snout underneath, right? It's the only way we can do that. So he does warn them. He says, so watch and remember that I've warned you. I've warned you with tears. This isn't a new word that they're hearing. It's not the first time the folks in Ephesus had heard about the potential for false teachers to come in the church. He's not talking about the persecution of unbelievers. He's not talking about the pagans. He's talking about those who want to pass themselves off as believers, getting in among the sheep and wreaking havoc. And so we must be vigilant as we defend the gospel and we defend the church. And when I say the church, I don't mean the physical building, right? I mean one another. Now, I mean that we would be willing, and listen, church, I understand this is difficult. I understand if you're in relationships with somebody and you've got a friend, you've got a family member, and their favorite guy or favorite girl is one I've picked on over the last 6 months, 8 months, year and a half, all right? However long I've been doing this, that I recognize that's tricky. And I know, it puts you in an awkward spot. If somebody says, hey, did you listen? Have you ever heard of Stephen Furtick? You should go listen to his sermon. I understand that you might think, this is about to get awkward. All right, yes, it probably will. Probably will. But I think, now I'm not suggesting that you jump on it, that you have to be obnoxious and difficult, all right? Unless they get obnoxious and difficult, and their family, all right, that's up to you. But otherwise, I would encourage compassion, wisdom, right? Maybe bringing them along. In fact, if you want a bit of advice here on how to do this, If somebody says, hey, have you ever read this book by this guy or listened to this message or this teaching by this individual or this lady, have you ever listened to this lady's podcast? Here's what I would recommend if you really want to do this. You go home, you listen to it, you do your discernment, especially if it's a problematic teacher, do your discernment and then say, hey, let's get together and listen to that together. And form everything in a question, all right? Just pretend it's Jeopardy, all right? Everything's going to be in the form of a question. You're going to say, well, when she says da-da-da-da, do you think that is what the Bible says? Or when he does this with this text, is that really how we should handle that text? So that's how I would approach it. I would listen to it and I would set up a time, say, hey, let's get together, let's talk, let's listen to this together, let's read this together. Let's watch this thing together. I know that takes a little more time, I understand. But yet it might provide you an opportunity then to speak without it being, so, confrontational. But I would encourage you, though, to be willing to at least take that stand to say, this is dangerous. Again, I think I've used the illustration before, but somebody getting offended by that is like me getting offended by a doctor who tells me I've got cancer. And if I were to respond, who do you think you are? Tell me I've got cancer. That's not very compassionate. That's not very loving. That's not very kind. Actually, it's the exact opposite, right? I may not like to hear it, but I need to hear it because there's something deadly inside of me. So I need to know. Same thing's happening in the church. That there are deadly things in the church. So we need to be vigilant when it comes to these things. All right. So these again are like kind of 4 final thoughts, though at the end of this outline I have final thoughts, okay? We need to stop this because really this will take years. I mean, really, I could just keep adding on because I find it to be such a critical thing. So here's how I want to finish this thing up. I told you I would do this. That we would then address other forms of media. In other words, other means by which Christian messages can be communicated. And I've really got 3 in mind. Christian books, Christian TV and movies, and Christian music. So how do we deal with these things? It's one thing to have a sermon, to have somebody who is maybe to describe it this way, standing in a pulpit, it's a teaching moment. We recognize it as a teaching moment. That they may even have a Bible. They're very clearly gathering a group of people because they intend to teach, to instruct, and even to do so out of the Word of God, claiming to do so Christianly. All right, so we get that. Yeah, let's evaluate that. And I've given you all kinds of principles and ideas and ways to evaluate the content of a sermon to see does it pass the test, so to speak. All right, so when it comes, though, to these other forms, well, how do we evaluate? Now, I'll go ahead and say this. The principles I've shared on discernment would still apply. I mean, just in general. Like when they talk about the Bible, and is it accurate, right? Does this represent something that properly represents God and His Word? So those fundamental questions, the way in which you would listen to a sermon, I would argue you should be asking the same kind of questions, though there is a slight difference, and we'll go through them here in a minute. Asking similar kind of questions when it comes to a book you may be reading, or TV, movies you're watching, or music that you're listening to. All right, but how can we do that more specifically? So this is what I want to do with our rest of our time. How do we evaluate, how do we discern among these other forms of media? Well, I would suggest that you're really asking 2 questions, all right? Kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, all right? Depending on how you answer the first question will then influence what you do with the second question. So again, if you want to fill in blanks, there are blanks there to fill in. So 2 other questions when dealing with these other forms of media. Number 1, first question, is the source in question trying to teach me something about the Christian faith? And so let me unpack that just a little bit more. In other words, is it intentionally, explicitly? Is the author of the book, is the producer, director of movie, said TV show, is the composer of the music, are they doing this because they want to, in their form, right, in their genre or their art form, are they trying to communicate biblical truth to God's people? Are they trying to tell you something about God, about man, about Jesus? Is there some theological, doctrinal point that they're making? Are they trying to encourage you in Christian living in some way? In other words, is the intent of the thing similar to that of a sermon? And that's what a sermon is designed to do, right? Whether we do it well or not. Ultimately, a sermon is an act of persuasion. I'm trying to get you to believe something or to not believe something, right? I'm trying to get you to do something or not do something. In other words, so we know that coming at it. So if somebody is writing a book, if they're producing media, they're producing music because they intentionally are trying to disciple me, well, that is significant. Now, if you get to this question and the material in question, you look at it and you say, well, no. No, I think it's just probably trying to be entertaining. You know, the easiest example of this would be instrumental music, all right? No, it's not trying to teach you anything, all right? But beyond that, it would be any kind of thing. It could be, for example, maybe a Christian author has written a fiction book. What's the purpose of the fiction book? Well, is it just to give you a good story? All right. You can evaluate whether or not you think it's a good story. Now, does it still need to be accurate if it tells you stuff about God? Well, sure. But is there some room there to say, you know what, this work is really just one that's trying to be entertaining, for lack of a better term. It might still be encouraging, it might be inspiring, whatever the case may be, but there doesn't seem to be anything about the work that's trying to persuade me. Not in any meaningful way, not in any kind of deep and significant way. Now, it is in this context I would include non-Christian material. I think you're free to consume non-Christian books, movies, TV, and music. All right? I think there is a freedom to do so, but I would just use wisdom and biblical discernment in what you do consume, right? However, am I going to take an unbeliever? Am I going to take an unbeliever and his book, his or her book, and expect biblical accuracy? Well, no. No, if I've got a wolf, I know the wolf's going to write like a wolf, all right? And so I'll leave that between you and the Spirit and the Word of God when it comes to those kinds of things. But if somebody, they say they're people of faith, but yet the work in question is not intentionally trying to teach me something, then just use sound judgment, right? Just use your wisdom, use biblical guidance, and if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. All right, great. Maybe, art, sometimes as they say, it's in the eye of the beholder, so to speak. So maybe your music's not my music, and whatever the case may be, but we can just leave it to that. We can just leave it to the aesthetics of the thing. If, however, they are trying to teach you something, if there is an intention to convince, persuade, educate, motivate, if this is clearly the purpose, then this leads to the second question, which I think would have then, the blank. If so, does it do so accurately? I know this, it's not mind-blowing here, I get that, but that is the question you'd ask. Are they doing it well? If they're trying to give me some word of God, in the name of God, are they doing it well? So you'll note there on your notes, I've given you just a few other questions underneath there. They're not on a screen. They're just there on your notes. But if somebody's trying to teach you something about the Bible or theology, etc., then I would apply the same basic rules that you would apply to anything. Are they taking me back to the Bible? Are they accurately teaching Scripture and sound doctrine? Are they offering appropriate points of application of Scripture to Christian living? In other words, all the stuff we've talked about discernment. Is it doing this well? I would suggest, if it's not, then that gets a flag. All right, that gets a red flag. If they're trying to tell me something, they're trying to motivate me, they're trying to encourage me in my faith, but they're not doing it well, then I think you should be critical of it. I think you should discourage others from consuming it. I think you yourself should be cautious in how you consume it. Understand, though, what I mean by that is, if you see in large part it seems inaccurate. Yeah, obviously you're going to read any book that you read, you're going to find something you probably disagree with, right? I probably disagree with stuff I've written and said. All right, in other words, I know that may discourage you, but you know what I mean. I mean, I'm sure if I were to go back and listen enough and read enough of whatever I've written, I'd find, you know what, that's probably not the best way to say that. All right, so there can be some leeway here. There can be some room for grace in recognizing different points of view. But the issue is, are they rightly handling the Word? Are they rightly handling theology, doctrine, whatever it is they're trying to do, is an appropriate application of God's Word? So these would be the general questions. Again, this at this point is general. I would apply this to any of that stuff. Now, let me move one step further, all right? So let's think a little more carefully then about these three basic forms. So again, this is in your notes, all right? Except there's not going to be any blanks to fill in. So number one, all right, so when it comes to books, when it comes to reading Christian books, again, if their attempt is to influence you, then it should be thoroughly biblical. I mean, again, the instruction I give there I think is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It should be accurate in its handling of the Bible. Now, this does not mean, I don't know that I'd apply exactly the same standard. I read plenty of books that aren't necessarily expositions of a text of Scripture. All right? In other words, some of the expectations related to a sermon, I would argue, are biblically mandated and regulated. The Bible regulates how I should preach and teach the Bible. When it comes to a book, that's not a biblically regulated feature. In other words, you don't have to read a Christian book. I mean, I would encourage it. But there's nothing in the Bible that requires me to do that. It doesn't come under the regulative principle of the Bible. But where I do expose myself, though, to Christian writers, again, are they doing so in a way that's clearly tied to the Bible? Is this a proper reflection of the Word of God? Let me give you an example of this in the negative. I've referenced this before. It's a book that is years old, but was widely influential. And that would be The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. All right? Which really, it was a play off of a book he'd written a decade before that called The Purpose-Driven Church. And the books are really quite similar in their basic function, looking at the 5 purposes. Now, here's the thing that the book touts. It quotes the Bible 16,000 times. 16,000. That's what he says. I've never counted it, all right? But that is what he has said. Now, if you go and you look, though, you will find they are either single verses, many of which are taken out of context, or phrases of verses, and there's not one consistent translation used. He jumps around. Sometimes he uses the NIV, sometimes he even uses the Message, which isn't a translation at all. Sometimes he uses the Living Bible, sometimes he uses the Contemporary English Bible. Every now and then he might throw in a New American Standard, or a New King James, but he's picking and choosing the translation to make the point. So this is just an example. This is somebody claiming to tell me he's got a Christian message. He's telling me I need to find my purpose. but there's not a verse in the Bible that says that. Not like that. Not like that. Not like he does, right? There's not one. There's not one. I know that may shock you because that's such a common idea. But not my own personal purpose. What is my purpose? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. I don't have to write a book. That's it. That's it. All right? That's it. That's your purpose. That's your purpose. It's my purpose. Everybody's purpose. So this kind of a thing is what is problematic. You really need to be tenacious when you read a book, I would argue. I would argue you need to be very careful. You need to read through it very carefully and ask yourself, so is the Bible being rightly handled? Is this an appropriate application of God's Word? So again, if they are teaching something, apply these same basic principles to make sure that they do stand up to the test. All right, let's go on to the next one. So what do we do with movies and TV? You know, this segment of entertainment has blown up big time. So much so that you now have major Hollywood studios trying to make movies for evangelicals. So I mean, you got people putting in the highest dollars, trying to find the best talent in order to make, and here's what they're calling them though, right? Faith-based movies and TV shows. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm going to ask the question, is this trying to intentionally teach me something? Or is it just kind of a fun story or encouraging, inspiring story? Is it a biographical one, right? Is it telling me about somebody else's story? You know, and even then, you want to listen carefully to make sure they're saying right things. But, you know, if it's good and encouraging and, you enjoy it, great, all right? If there's no attempt, though, to try and teach something, to try and represent biblical truth or biblical principles, well, again, I think you can just apply good common sense. If, however, they are trying to teach me something, if they are trying to communicate biblical truth, and again, we hold it to the highest standard. So let me give you, like some examples here of what I mean by this. So if in the context of the movie, they're moving it in such a way that they're trying to say, yes, this is God's Word to you, or this is how you should live your life because of whatever is being depicted on screen, then again, you need to evaluate that very carefully if it's a modern kind of movie. I'll give you an example of a movie, because we do movie nights here, right? We've done it during the summer. We didn't do it this summer, but we've done it. We've probably, times we've had good ones. Maybe there have been some that maybe we wouldn't show again. It's one of the reasons why I've probably preferred to show various kinds of documentaries, all right, which we've done a number of those. But one movie that we've not shown. And if you've seen it, don't get all weirded out, all right, when I pick on it. Okay? All right? Just take a deep breath. It's all going to be good. You're still going to go to heaven. I mean, you're going to be behind me, but you're still going to go to heaven, all right? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Come on. There's a pandemic out there. Come on. All right. And that's The War Room. Right? The movie The War Room. Priscilla Schreier, Beth Moore is in it, all right? Now, both of these, so here's why this is an issue. Now, I've not seen the entirety of it, all right? I have seen portions of it. Not only do I have issues, and you've heard them before, with some of the teaching of Priscilla Schreier and Beth Moore. The way they handle the text outside of the movie is problematic in a number of ways. But the movie does attempt to depict a biblical picture of prayer. And it falls short. It suggests certain elements of prayer that are not mandated in the Bible, and it treats prayer as something really mystical and super spiritualized. It goes beyond the text of Scripture while at the same time suggesting this is how the Bible presents it. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. If it is trying to teach me something, I need to be on guard and I need to evaluate it accordingly. But there's another segment though here, beyond just like modern movies, all right? Let's set aside modern movies. The area here where I really have my biggest struggle, movies that depict biblical stories. And here's where I think they mess up. It's one thing to depict a story and to build the context, right? To build the background. That's good. I do that. I do that when I preach. And so if you take creative license with, trying to say, as best history could tell us, here's what it looked like, here's what it sounded like, here's what mattered, here's the historical background, cultural background, that's fine. But when they begin to monkey with the story as it's found in the Bible. So you ready for me to pick on a beloved movie? All right? Ten Commandments. All right? Now, number one, when you read Exodus, who do you see in your head? You see Charlton Heston, you see Yul Brynner. Don't tell me you don't. You do. All right? You do. I know you do. When you read Exodus, that's exactly what you see. Right? It is. It's in your brain. You can't help it. So that's already kind of one issue. I mean, maybe they look like that or not. I don't know. But here's the big thing. There are scenes taken from the Bible, like the plagues, where there is interaction between Moses and Ramses, right? Where they are having dialogue. And that is not in the text. It's not in the text. But yet they are depicting an event that takes place in the text. This is misleading. So am I telling you can't watch it? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing you need to watch out for because media can be powerful. TV and movies can be powerful. I'll give you a much more contemporary example. There's been a TV series produced. I think it's in its second season. It's called The Chosen. And it's well done. I've seen a couple of episodes of this. It's very well done. The acting is really well done. The scene, the setting, all that is very well done. And this is, I think, is the most problematic example. They put words in the mouth of Jesus that Jesus does not say. I don't know what to do with that other than to say, that seems really dangerous to me. It seems really dangerous to put words in the mouth of the Son of God that we have no record that He said. It might be really moving. It might be inspirational and powerful. And here's where I often then, where my discernment, spidey senses, I guess, would go off, is when somebody tells me, you got to watch this TV show. It's going to change your life. It's going to give you a view of the Bible you never had before. I'm not interested. If God wanted me to have a view I'd never had before, He would have revealed the Bible to me in a movie. He didn't. He gave me a book. He gave me a book. Maybe there's a reason why He did not give it to me in a visual format. Maybe there's some wisdom in that. So when somebody tells me, I didn't know Jesus had such a sense of humor. Well, maybe He did. He did say funny things, right? And He did say, before you get the speck out of your brother's eye, get the telephone pole out of your own. All right, so He does use that kind of language. Sometimes He's sad, sometimes He's happy. All right, He does have these emotions. But there was one scene where Jesus winked. All right, so did He wink? I don't know, but it's not in the Bible. I can tell you the Bible never said, and Jesus gave Mary a wink. All right, He never does that. He doesn't do that. So this is a problem for me. This is a pretty serious problem for me. When you put words in the mouth of Jesus, because John's gospel makes it explicit. Not everything Jesus said and did was written down. If it were to be written down, there aren't enough books in the world to hold it. So I take that to mean that was on purpose. I have enough Jesus in the pages of the Bible. I don't need more. And I don't need a television show or a movie to do something that the text itself doesn't do for me. In other words, if I cannot visualize it out of the text, then so what? So what? I don't need to. So here's really the question, is the text sufficient for me? Is the Bible sufficient? So this is where movies and TV shows, I think, are problematic. And again, what then happens? What happens to these things? Well, you can't get the image out of your mind. You can't get the image out of your mind. Who do you begin to see then when you read through? I mean, for some of you, do you still see Jim Caviezel when you read through the Gospels? Now, let me mention, by the way, the Passion of the Christ. The Passion of the Christ, I would use an example, is the opposite of this. He only put in the mouth of Jesus the words Jesus spoke. And in fact, they spoke Aramaic. All right? I don't know if you remember this, but the whole movie was in Aramaic. Because that was the language they would have spoken. Now, the New Testament's written in Greek, but the language they probably spoke was Aramaic. So there's not a word that comes off the lips of Jesus that's not found in the text. The same is true for the movie called The Jesus Film. Are you familiar with the Jesus Film? That goes way back. It's been around for a very long time. Campus Crusade for Christ used it for years and years and years. I remember doing some mission trips where we showed it. Nothing in the movie is said that's not found in the text. All of it comes directly out. So that would be a better way of doing it. But still, I'd be cautious with it because movies are so profound. That visual medium is such a profound one. It has such an ability to move the heart, right? The soul, the emotions. And so we need to be mindful of that. All right, let's go on to the last one. And that is music. So what do we do with music then? Well, again, I do the same thing. It's possible there's music out there that's really just forms of poetry. It's just maybe expressing the author's whatever they're going through, and it's not trying to teach you anything. It's more autobiographical kind of music. All right, fine. Or if it's just kind of fun, upbeat music, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, not every piece of music has to, quote Calvin, all right, or Spurgeon. So it doesn't all have to be deep theology. You read some of the Psalms. Some of the Psalms are way more accessible than others, right? Some of the Psalms are pretty straightforward, simple ideas. Some, though, resonate on a very deep level. All right, so not all music just has to be this kind of deep and heavy theological tome necessarily. However, I would distinguish between two purposes in music. If the purpose of the music is just popular, meaning it's just to be played on the radio, it's just something you listen to, all right, I would give that a certain amount of leeway. There would be a certain expectation I have of that music or don't have of that music. I would use wisdom and good common sense. Listen to it. Is it accurate and appropriate, right? Is it good music? However, when the music is intended to be used in the worship of God's people, meaning the corporate gathering, if it is to be sung by God's people, then the Bible demands that music be regulated. It demands it. Right? This has to be done in the right kind of way. It has to be. So in other words, just because it's beboppy and has a tune you can sing to, and even if it's music you hear at a concert, that's not the same thing. Even though they may open up and say, we're here to worship tonight, and it could be a form of worship, all right, when God's people gather for the purpose of being the assembled church, the assembled local church, properly officiated, right, properly organized under the gospel for the sake of glorifying God, that has to be regulated by the Bible. That music has to be done well. I don't care what somebody thinks of style. I don't care if you like it better if it's older, and I'm maybe talking to some of you. I don't care if you like it better because it was written before 1950 or if you like it better because it was written after it rolled over 2000, right? I don't care. Neither does the Bible. Neither does the Bible. In other words, its style, when it was written, these are not prominent concerns. Instead, it is its content. It is its content more than anything, and we have to be vigilant, I would argue. So in other words, When it comes to the corporate worship of God's people, I think there's very little room for the whiny, silly, erotic, self-indulgent, self-centered music that's out there today. And there's a lot of it. Yes, I said the word erotic. There's a lot of worship that sounds erotic, beyond just romantic. There's a lot of so-called worship songs that sound, it's as if Celine Dion could be belting them out herself, all right? And you wouldn't know the difference. And I think it's inappropriate. I think it's ungodly. I think it does not honor the Lord. So when I'm evaluating these things, that's what I want to do. I want to ask myself, so is this theologically rich? If it's coming to the worship of God's people, is this theologically rich? Does it help promote the genuine worship of God? Or is it shallow? Is it off biblically? So I've given you some lyrics here, all right? So I want you to look at these. I know we're getting at 7, but I hope you all can stick with me because I want to get through this, all right? Is that all right? If you want to leave, you can. All right, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it hurt my feelings real bad, but all right. So here's some stuff that was written to be sung in church, by the way. The thought was by all of these folks, this would be done with God's people in corporate worship. These aren't people who've written this just to be played on the radio, all right? So here's one that's somewhat older, How He Loves Us, and maybe you've heard the song. By the way, if you're going to evaluate a song, I would encourage you to evaluate it without music. If you want to evaluate a song, just look up the lyrics and just read the lyrics. It's the best way to do it. Get rid of the music. If you like it, bring the music back, all right? But get rid of the music part because that can be really distracting. It can be really distracting to actually evaluate it. So here is the text of How He Loves Us. Some of these I've not given you the whole text, but for this one I have. He is jealous for me. Loves like a hurricane, meaning His love is like a hurricane. I am a tree, so stop right there. That's not true. Now, I know what some people think. Pastor, what's the big deal? Love's like, it sounds really sweet. We've all been in hurricanes. Do you really think God's love is this big, monstrous, slow-witted behemoth of a thing that destroys whatever it goes across? Is this how we want to identify God's love? Love's a hurricane, I'm a tree. If that's the case, if God's love's a hurricane and I'm a tree, I've seen what this does. I mean, literally, right? Many of us have seen it in the moment. It's terrifying. I don't want to be the tree. I don't want to be the tree. I don't want to be that. Now, if you change this, God's judgment may feel like a hurricane, and as a lost person, I'm a tree. All right, maybe we're getting somewhere. But to say this, no. And then he goes on to say, bending beneath the weight of His wind and mercy, when all of a sudden I'm unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful You are, and how great Your affections are for me. And then this is the chorus, how He loves us, how He loves us, how He loves us all. Which, of course, that's all right. But notice this next stanza. And we are His portion, and He is our prize, drawn to redemption by the grace in His eyes. It's even that language. So that kind of language just really creeps me out as a man. It just creeps me out. Now, you can say I've got a problem, all right? Maybe I'm just emotionally truncated, all right? That I don't look lovingly, anyway, into His eye. That's just all weird to me. But this gets even weirder. If His grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. Which again is an odd phrase. So I'm drowning. So it's not a positive phrase. I know it sounds poetic, but it's not. And heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss. Now, I will tell you, this song, by the way, was later changed and was changed to, and heaven meets earth it changes it to heaven meets earth like a loving kiss. They change it. So that was good. But this you read, you just think, ooh, right? I mean, it's kind of, all right. And my heart turns violently inside of my chest. This was a really popular song. This won Dove Awards. This sold millions, all right? That this was a big deal. This song was a big deal. And it got sung in church after church after church after church. All right. Here's another one by somebody who otherwise has written some decent songs, Good, Good Father by Chris Tomlin. I picked this one out because to me, this is an example of what sounds good, but kind of is shallow, All right? So we'll try and read through this. Again, I know, man, we're getting close to time here, or we're beyond time. I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whispers of love in the dead of the night. Now, this kind of language comes up, by the way, in a lot of these kinds of songs. Why do I need God's tender whispers in the night? Again, to me, it's a direct assault on the sufficiency of Scripture. I don't need God to whisper anything. Anything. I do need Him to speak, but He's already done it, right? He's already done it, so I need Him by His Spirit to bring it to bear. And you tell me that you're pleased that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers. By the way, I know that sounded snarky and I meant for it to be. There's nothing wrong with some repetition and choruses, all right? That's fine. There are psalms that have this. So that's fine, but it's going to be a little much here in a minute. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide, because you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. Because you're perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. Now, when I say that, rather than the music playing and they're swaying and somebody saying, sing it again with real meaning, right? It takes on a little different thing when it's just over and over and over again. Oh, it's love so deniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think. As you call me deeper still. As you call me deeper still. As you call me deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, to who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, to who you are, to who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. Got it. You know, sometimes you just wonder if God's up there going, got it. There's other things. And that is repeated over and over and over again. All right? So this is an example, by the way. This isn't quite it, but you know, there is a critique of some of these worship songs where they're called 7-11 songs. Have you ever heard this? 7 words repeated 11 times. Again, I'm not against repetition. We have some phrases that we repeat. There are biblical phrases that are worthy of repeating. But this is just an example of something that's fairly shallow. Now, some of it may be fine in its brief moment, but it's fairly shallow. All right, here's another song, The More I Seek You. I want to sit at your feet, drink from the cup in your hand. Now, if I didn't have that phrase in there, let's just take these next 3 lines. Lay back against you and breathe. Feel your heartbeat. This love is so deep, it's more than I can stand. I melt in your peace, it's overwhelming. Would you have any idea that was a Christian song? The only thing that comes close is the word peace. But even then, does that sound anything like a Christian song? So is there any place where this should be, done in a corporate setting? Here's another one that's old. I Want to Know You by Sonic Flood. I want to know you. I want to hear your voice. I want to know you more. I want to touch you. I want to see your face. I want to know you more. So again, it's just these phrases sound like they're drawn from biblical ideas, but they're not really. And they're asking for something that God says, just go to my word. Just go to my word. And I show you myself. I speak to you in my word. And then one final one here. This one's really popular. Reckless Love, Corey Asbury. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it still. You give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Now, worship songs do this all the time, and that is they pick up these phrases that have biblical connections, but they put them together in weird ways. So yes, does he go after the one? Does he leave the 99 and go after the one? Yes. Is that an appropriate reflection of God's love? Yes. Is that reckless? Would you ever define God's love as reckless? That sounds horrible to me. Because that means that God is being thoughtless. That means He's being rash. Right? That means God's living in the moment. I don't want God to do that. I do that. I can be rash. I can be reckless. I can live in the moment. And that ends up me doing a lot of dumb things. All right? So I don't want to do that. I don't want God to be that. I don't want God's love to be reckless. I want God's love for me to be expressed when He knows exactly who I am, and what He's doing. Now, I do want to give you one more song. It's not here in the list, but I do want to be an equal opportunity offender, all right? And I want to tell you the story of the song behind it, because the author has written the story of how this happens. He says this: I was seated in a dark room. He did photography. I was seated in a dark room, and I drew my Bible toward me. But I mean, there was light, right? There was light in there, but he was in a dark room. All right. I drew my Bible toward me, and it opened to my favorite chapter, John 20, where, by chance or inspiration, I'll let you decide, that meeting of Jesus and Mary had lost none of its power and charm. As I read it that day, I seemed to be part of the scene. I became a silent witness to that dramatic moment in Mary's life when she knelt before her Lord and cried, "Rabboni." My hands were resting on the Bible while I stared at the light blue wall. As the light faded, I seemed to be standing at the entrance of a garden, looking down a gently winding path shaded by olive branches. A woman in white with head bowed, hand clasping her throat as if to choke back her sobs, walked slowly into the shadows. It was Mary. As she came to the tomb upon which she placed her hand, she bent over to look in and hurried away. John, in flowing robe, appeared looking at the tomb. Then came Peter, who entered the tomb, followed slowly by John. As they departed, Mary reappeared. Leaning her head upon her arm at the tomb, she wept. Turning herself, she saw Jesus standing. So did I. I knew it was He. She knelt before Him with arms outstretched, looking into His face, and cried, "Rabboni." I awakened in sunlight, gripping the Bible, with muscles tense and nerves vibrating, under the inspiration of this vision. I wrote as quickly as I could the words of the poem exactly as it has since appeared. That same evening, I wrote the music. So this man claims to have had a vision of Jesus at the tomb, and under inspiration, he then wrote these words: I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of His voice is so sweet the birds hush their singing, and the melody that He gave to me within my heart is ringing. I'd stay in the garden with Him, though the night around me be falling, but He bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling. You all know I love you, right? I don't know if you're going to love me. Now, you can disagree, all right? You can disagree. This is not one of my favorite songs. It's in our hymn book. But to me, it's really similar to some of these others. There's nothing in the song that identifies it as intentionally Christian. In fact, let me change some of the lyrics, all right? Listen to this. She speaks, and the sound of her voice is so sweet the birds hush their singing. And the melody that she gives to me within my heart is ringing. I'd stay in the garden with her, though the night around me be falling, but she bids me go through the voice of woe. Her voice to me is calling. In other words, I can replace the he pronoun with she, and it sounds like a love song. Furthermore, I find the song to not necessarily be ringing with biblical Christian themes. So again, I bring that up let's just offend everybody, all right? Let's just be offensive to everybody as best I can. And just to say, just because it was written recently doesn't mean it's necessarily a problem. But just because it was written 100 years ago doesn't mean it's theologically accurate. Doesn't mean it's necessarily biblically rich. And just because a committee that works for the Southern Baptist Convention thought it should be in a hymn book, that's not necessarily a sign that this is all good. So again, now, I've been a part of funerals, right? I've planned funerals that had this song, all right? Okay? Probably for people in the room. I understand that. And so, if you come to me with a funeral and say, can I do In the Garden? All right, I'm not going to be snarky about it. Okay, all right? So, no, I'm not. I promise. I won't. I'll be snarky about other things, but not that, all right? But I am suggesting this is just an example of how this is a big deal. We should care deeply about these things. And just because something has sweet sentimental value, so this is the thing that I would encourage you with all of this. Just because it has sweet sentimental value, just because at first blush you might say, well, I don't see anything wrong with it. Well, you may want to look again. Well, that song's been a blessing to me. All right. The Quran's been a blessing to people too. So, in other words, these are not standards, though, of truth, are they, right? Right? These are not standards of truth. Just because somebody said it made me feel good, it warmed my heart. All right. Well, it gave, I really felt the Spirit. I don't know what to tell you. Well, I've been in a worship service where this song was sung, or one of those songs you mentioned, and it was really moving, it was really powerful. I'm sure it was, because music can do that. Even really bad music can do that. That's what it does. That's why we have to be so careful with it. And that's why when we do what we do, we're going to be very careful that it is music that rings with the Bible, that rings with theology, and that rings with the gospel. And I promise you, you can take any Sunday we've had and read through the lyrics of those songs, and you're going to find rich, deep, profound, meaningful truth. Because my obligation, our obligation to you, is that we provide you a means to honor God in a way that God is honored. Not to provide you with music that you leave thinking, oh, that was sweet. I know it's shocking to you, but that's not my first thought, all right? My first thought is not, you're going to think the music is sweet. That's not my first thought. It's not John's first thought. Our obligation is to something far greater, something far more serious, and that is to God and His glory. And we are obligated to be stewards to help you sing so that God is glorified. And that is what we are committed to doing. So, again, these are just examples here, and man, I went way too long. So, sorry about that. But I hope it has been helpful, and I hope this whole series has been helpful as you now listen with discerning ears about these things and these people that want to try and influence you. Again, with the Word of God and the name of God to the people of God, it is absolutely essential that we do this well. All right, let's pray together. Father God, I do thank you for gathering your people. Again, it has been a privilege to be with brothers and sisters in Christ. We do thank you for your Word. And Father, we confess that we are all frail humans, and God, we are in desperate need of your guidance and direction. So may we be vigilant in our commitment to your Word. It is the only thing that leads and guides you by your Spirit in your Word. And so Father, may we be slavish to it. And God, that we would then be discerning in these sources that try and influence our minds and try and influence our actions. God, we want to be a faithful church, a healthy church, one that honors you, your Word, that we do what we do for your glory. And so, God, may you continue to lead us in being that kind of people. I thank you for these who've come tonight, their willingness to be a part of this time, and pray, God, you'd lead and guide them, granting them wisdom for the days to come, and that you'd gather your people back together again, that we might worship you in spirit and in truth. That's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.